Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome for all of you. And thank you so much for accepting the invite and especially joining on a weekend, right? So that's very special. And thanks for taking the time to join us today. As we all started to celebrate, I think this is a history month. I know most of you, I know personally also how much passionate you are about this topic and then how much passionate to lift others. So we are so glad to have you, especially for the topic which we have selected as a, and given the International Women's Day theme is also around digital equality. So we are so glad to have all the right people for the right topic. So once again, thank you so much. I just want to introduce Shevolve to everyone. So Shevolve is a mentoring platform for women. So what we try to do is we try to do a career evaluation, which is a pattern career evaluation from Shevolve. And then we try to help the women to get a right mentor who can guide them and then help them to navigate their career. I think most of us have experienced that a lot of women disappear in between, or they become very quiet or not pursue a lot of their aspirations. And all of us know that a small, a little push, a little help, a little hand giving makes a huge difference for them. So that's something we pursued as a dedicated mentoring platform for women. That's our, and especially COVID has helped us to accelerate this journey, given that COVID has actually put women a little behind, given a lot of things going on. And even though they are trying, we worked so hard. I think most of you in this call, especially the panelists, like you have been worked hard in your career and your journey, like how much your effort you have also put in to bring women. But we all saw what happened during COVID. We still, a lot of women have leave the job, they have to, it has actually made women to little left behind compared to all other groups. I'm hoping that a lot of things, since things are coming back, there is a lot of effort to bring them back. And this is one of our effort to bring them back. And also we are offering a personalized mentoring for the women so that they can again get back. And as well as if they are aspiring, help them to navigate their career and have a very happy and a satisfaction career. That's what Shevolve does. So with that, I would love to give it to Trisha to quickly introduce the topic and the speakers.
Thank you, ma'am. Everyone, I'm Trisha Gayatri. It's a great honor and pleasure that I introduce the agenda for today's event. And the agenda as follows. In about a minute, we are kickstarting this event with a panel discussion on the topic, exploring the impact of the digital gender gap on widening economic and social inequalities. And the panel discussion will be followed by a keynote at 5 p.m. on the topic, why should students focus on tech careers? And then it will be followed by a lightning talk at 5:30 p.m. on the topic, breaking the myth, women and patents. Finally, we're wrapping the event with a panel discussion at 6 on the topic, make you a compelling hire, earn it. Now, without much ado, let's kickstart today's event with our first panel discussion on the topic, exploring the impact of the digital gender gap on widening economic and social inequalities. So to give you a gist about what the panel discussion will be, the unequal access to and the utilization of technology between men and women, the digital gender gap, it has far-reaching consequences on economic and gender equalities. So this gender division in digital and technological literacy leads to sort of fewer job opportunities and lower wages for women. So the lack of access to digital tools and education, it can sort of perpetuate gender stereotypes and inhibit women's participation in decision-making processes. So in this virtual event, the panelists on the panel discussion will explore the digital gender gap so that we can better understand its implications on economic and social disparities and take steps bridging the divide and promoting gender equality. The panel discussion will be moderated by technologist and she was co-founder Padri Saravana Kumar. Now it's time to introduce the speakers. First, we have Rinku Micheri. She's a social entrepreneur who started her journey in the developmental sector when she founded Chennai Volunteers in 2011. She's also the director of Giving Matters Foundation, a philanthropic initiative that supports several charities. She also serves on the board of several nonprofits and believes that collaboration and collective action is key to the success of an inclusive and equitable civic society. She's also worked as an advertising and marketing professional in Delhi, Bangalore, and then Madras with firms like Ogilvy and Mehta, Virtue Brand Consulting, and as an independent consultant. We're excited to have you on board with us, Ma. Next, we have Sheila Sridharan. Sheila heads the technical certification practice in Genesis Beyond, a critical business unit of Genesis Telecom Labs India Private Limited. She has trained several learning professionals and is continuing to coach aspiring leaders. She heads the DEI India Council at Genesis. As a first generation women graduate in her family, she is passionate about empowering fellow women to chase their dreams. We are thrilled to have you on board with us, ma'am. Next, we have Ruchira Gokhale. Ruchira is a certified diversity professional and a qualified human resource specialist with a career spanning 20 years. She heads the consulting solutions vertical at Interweave, which involves conducting DE&I diagnostics, policy reviews, benchmarking studies, communication strategy, etc. Her work spans across companies such as Sun Life, Northern Trust, Volvo, Lowe's, and Pfizer, and others. She's also a faculty member for the DEI certification program that Interweave runs in partnership with Diversity Training University International, DTUI, in US. We are glad to have Ruchira on board. Thank you, Ma. And we have Sangeeta Sumesh. Sangeeta is a CFO turned business and leadership coach, global speaker, best-selling author, and independent director on corporate boards. She works with corporate leaders and teams in enabling high performance and enhancing financial growth. She's on a mission to enable, empower, and elevate business and individuals with a purpose to serve corporate leaders and teams to shine and succeed. We're thrilled to have you on board with us too, ma'am. Over to Badri, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. That was a pages train from Chennai to Bangalore. Yeah, of course, when we have a very great lineup of speakers, okay, that's how it happens, because you have too many to cover for the time that we have. Thank you so much, Trisha. Hey, good evening all. It's my pleasure to have the 4 panelists to kickstart this panel discussion. It's just a coincidence that we have 2 people starting with R and 2 people starting with S. Okay, that's it. So, yes. Let's first go to that person who is probably spending a lot of time in giving back to the society and who has pioneered. I mean, we have a lot of NGOs now, okay, but I think she's one of the pioneers in starting the non-profit called Chennai Volunteers. My question to you, Rinku, is I think as being a pioneers in running a voluntary organization, it's very natural that we think, okay, women have a lot of time at their disposal. They are natural nurturers, so they are probably the one that who's going to take up their hands, raise up their hands, and do a lot of this volunteering. Is that so really? And if not, what are the challenges that women are facing, and what it takes to bring more women to do volunteering, both in terms of underprivileged people or even to sectors like where we are economically forward, but then what it takes to do volunteering to give it back in terms of enabling education, etc.
Thank you, Badri, and good evening, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this panel. I think I'm the wild card in this board because the others are very, very accomplished in terms of their day-to-day life. But having said that, yes, so I'd just like to start at the beginning. It's been 12 years since I started Chennai Volunteers, and we were a group of women who started Chennai Volunteers. The first cohort, as I call them, the founding volunteers were all women. And I think women have this innate ability, once they tap on it, to not hear no or not given to no. So we were a group of people. I had never had any experience in the social sector, developmental sector. I definitely did not pass off as a social worker, but I knew that we were all in a position, educated, privileged, and with a responsibility. And we were at that stage in life where we all wanted to do more than just go to work. I think we had reached that point. But we also knew it was rather unfortunate that we had to reach that level to actually start to give back. So our focus or our thought at that point, or at least my thought, was that if I could help young women and youngsters inculcate giving back into their day-to-day life, and even if 10% of them held on to it, we would have done a fair job. So that was the thought with which 10 of us started this. Having said that, I think in the South, it's very different from the North. Again, like I keep saying in India. So while our forefathers, generations above us, our grandmothers, women, always did seva or service around in their own ecosystem or their environment, somewhere we lost track of that, right? Which is why there was a need to create a structure that would enable giving back time. So that in itself was a gap that was there. Beyond that, women who were educated, who were working and managing home and work, definitely did not have the time. Women who were bringing up children did not want to volunteer with children outside. Women who was living with their in-laws did not want to go to an old age home, right? And I think young women were totally unaware of things like blood donation or even what their hemoglobin count was. So we were at that point in the start. It took a lot of missionary marketing, as I would call it, a lot of coercing, a lot of tireless striving. But I think the tipping point in volunteering is that, I always say it's like yoga. It's good for you. It's part of your social thread. It's part of your culture. When you do it, you will feel excellent. It replenishes your soul. It helps you grow. But if you don't do it, you don't miss it. If you do it once, you feel good, but again, you won't miss it. It's only if you make it part of your life, do you really feel that growth and that fulfillment? And then it just becomes something you do, like you do anything else. So keeping all that in mind, we were doing really well. I think women were at the forefront of all our projects, not to say that men were not, but it's always easier to get men when they are either in college and they have to do it as part of their structured volunteering, or when they are corporates and they genuinely lead or follow somebody who's in a higher, position. But in terms of individuals, I have found, and this has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a woman, that once a woman becomes a volunteer, she continues. She continues till her family has some situation for which she has to back out, because she's also the caregiver and nurturer there. And that is exactly what happened when COVID hit. All the women were like doubling up, tripling up, quadrupling up, and this was hit. But then the saving grace was that we went remote, we went online. And the same people who used to volunteer earlier said, hey, I can take 2 hours out to sit in a room, even if it's my time. And they got back. So I think about getting more women into the volunteering force, it would also mean that you have to make it work for them within their paraphernalia. So what we always try to do is map them to projects that are close to where they are, right? So if I am living in, say, Anna Nagar, it doesn't make sense for me to go and volunteer in Egmore or in Gandhinagar. It is not sustainable. At the same time, if I bring it close, if I say in Shenoy Nagar, there's a school or there's a home which needs help, I know that they will do a good job. Okay. And I know that they will take it and run. So it's about creating access. It's about giving responsibility. It's about having women who will lead them by just examples. So you don't have to say anything. They're just seeing it ahead of them. And I think this applies for everyone. But some of my best volunteers, and it's wrong to say my best volunteers, but some of the best volunteers have been active seniors who are retired and who come back to give time. Because for them, that is the purpose. It becomes that additional purpose in their life. And, the zest and the commitment they bring to it is amazing. So I think if we can bring 2 or 3 of these things together, definitely we can bring more women back to volunteering.
Oh, then that's a lot of insights there. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, women have that natural quality, but I think it's also important for the non-profits to make it work for them.
Yeah.
And make it relevant. And I think as the world changes, everything else has got to change. That's nice to hear that we have a lot of women participating there in whatever way they could. I think probably I'll ask the next question to Ruchira. I think it's very nice that you also have been the head consulting solutions and interview, because I got to know through Deepa, okay? Because once she started on the baton of making a great mark in that, okay, in terms of the organization in PayPal. And I could see what are some of the things that interview gave her, okay. And I think a lot of those insights are really helpful. And it's great to know that such organizations are there and we are making it a priority, so that diversity and inclusion is not just spoken, but there are methods. You are defining the methods to make it happen. So thanks for that, Ruchira. So with that,
Thank you.
I'm sure you have been as a human resource specialist of a career that spans 2 decades. I would like to hear some of the thoughts of what are some of the challenges faced by women in the digital industry, and some of the strategies that as a HR or as a diversity professional that you have undertaken or you have seen organizations undertaking that is promoting the gender equality and making it a reality in the workplaces.
All right. Thank you so much, Bhaduri. And very happy to be here with all these esteemed co-panelists. So thank you for the opportunity, and a happy Women's Day to everyone who's joined us today. Bhaduri, before I really talk about the specific challenges that women experience in this space, I just want to add a little bit of context or backdrop to this topic. And I'm sure some of the other co-panelists will also add to it. I think, what data tells us is that women in India are 20% less likely to own a smartphone as compared to the men, and more likely to sort of simply just borrow a phone from a male family member. So, so that is one layer. And then you add another layer on that to say that there is a very basic distrust that women have with engaging with digital financial services. There's a distrust to say, what if there is a breach of security, of privacy? So, so that sort of becomes another layer. And the third, and of course, the most obvious layer is the patriarchy. That's the social or the social cultural fabric of our society, which then limits mobility for women. It limits access to resources and just the overall decision-making power that women hold. And the reason I'm quoting all of this is because all of this has an impact on how women engage with technology at a very fundamental level. And that sort of translates to how they engage with that at the workplace also. So I feel like there is a very basic sense of belonging, which sometimes is in question to say, do I even belong here? And that gets compounded very often in very masculine work environments, which are holding women to very masculine standards. And that sort of also furthers that deficit of sense of belonging that women hold in any area that is technology or digital. And I think that is where all those challenges stem from, right from barriers for women to enter that sector in the first place, because there are doubts to say when there are men who are available, which are always preferred candidates for these roles, why should I be hiring women? So it starts from that level, and then it goes on to once women are in the organization, are they even going to have an opportunity to grow at the same pace as others in the organization? And I'm just talking gender binary, which is what I'm saying, men and women. So will they even have that opportunity as men? So I think it's a combination of all of that sticky floor and glass ceiling to say, one, will I grow? If I grow, how much will I grow? So, so I think all of that just adds up, and lack of role models who are other women in this space, all of that sort of adds up. And in my experience, what has worked, what has started to work and show results in organizations is first for organizations to acknowledge there's a problem. There is a disparity, there is a gap, and we need to take stock. And then second, I think, is as the theme for IWD suggests, embracing equity. I think that has been the most powerful strategy for organizations to embrace equity in looking at, when I said barriers to entry, equity in looking at non-traditional talent sources. So today a lot of gig workers in technology roles, in digital roles, are available as women. And if we are going to go with that very standard lens of what talent looks like, we will miss out on this entire talent pool, right? So looking at non-traditional, because forever I hear there is a talent. my question back is to say, where are you looking for the talent? Are you looking wide enough, right? So I think bringing in non-traditional talent and then equity in terms of policies, whether it be period leave, whether it be supporting and enabling women through various life stages. So a whole host of policies become important. Programs that are targeted for women, whether it's leadership development or skill development that are unique to women. So I think all of that parity in terms of pay, etc. I think all of those equity related focus has sort of started to bear fruit, I would say, to some extent. So I hope that answers.
Exactly. Yes. I think one on the sides that women themselves, do they have the access? Number two is if they have the access, are the organizations making it an equitable environment for them to go and do this? And are women taking that foot forward without the fear of judgment and rejection, etc.? And are they moving? Yes, of course. I think it's all evolving. And I think people like us can be that role models, can be those torchbearers. I think we all got to work together to make more and more of these happen. In that same context, Sangeeta, if I may ask you, I know it's, I mean, there are so much of, though I think there are less women, but I think with the women, and with what's happening in the industry, in the digital industry, in the tech industry, with very, very rapidly changing dynamism of the technology, and companies trying to adapt more and more digital transformation efforts to sustain. And even big companies are trying to do the next phase, because I think one point of time we were talking about Googling and not searching. But I think now it's all, we don't know what chat GPT is going to make to the Google and etc.
Yes.
So it's so much of rapid transformation. Okay, I think how can companies ensure that this fast-paced digital transformation efforts do not inadvertently perpetuate gender biases, because they want to be faster, and so they go after the natural people who are tagged as the makers. So gender biases doesn't come in between in order to make it a fast-paced transformation. And what steps can be taken to mitigate these risks? Because with whatever they want to achieve, they also make sure that inclusion, diversity, and all of this is also addressed, and they don't fall under the cracks, through the cracks. Yeah, especially big corporates and small startups, etc., how they can foster a culture of inclusion and diversity when they do such transformation efforts.
Sure. Great, Baduri. Thanks. And happy International Women's Day to everybody. And it's a pleasure to be part of Shevolve's session. So I think you've asked me like 3 questions. So firstly, if we were to look at the digital transformation efforts do not advertently, give in to the gender biases, what can organizations actually do out there? So I would give an acronym for this. It's called ACE, ACE, basically how can you ace your game? So if you were to look at it from that perspective, what organizations can do is firstly to enhance awareness, right? The awareness levels is not there because a lot of times we are all caught up by this, unconscious bias that we have, because we've all been programmed to in a certain manner. It just automatically pops up even without our knowledge for both men and women. So firstly, I think it's important to enhance awareness. That's the A. Then the C is the culture, creating the right culture within each organization, because culture sets the tone for everything. And I strongly believe that the culture has to flow from the top, right? You set the culture and then you let it flow, then everybody automatically falls into it. So setting the right sort of culture within each organization is important. And of course, the E is to educate the people around, because if you notice like an unconscious bias towards gender, then, you just walk up to them and educate, saying, hey, listen, gender doesn't really have anything to do with it. So by following this ACE, that is awareness, culture, and educating people, I think this gender bias can really be avoided by a lot of organizations. And then I think you asked me about the risks, right? I mean, how to mitigate these risks. So basically, it's to create the right mindset. The mindset shift is very important. And again, like tell people that end of the day, it's not gender that gives you the performance, right? It is what the individual brings along. It's the capabilities, it's the talent and the skill that a person brings on board, which is what helps an organization to succeed. So I think that's very important. So creating the right sort of mindset would really be useful. And I think, yeah, the third one you asked me was how to nurture and foster the culture of inclusion, right? So here again, I mean, I'd like to share a little experience of mine during the initial start of my career, the early part of my career. I was actually working in Africa, in Southern Africa. And we were all expatriates, and there was a huge expatriate community. And in my organization, a whole lot of them were from Sri Lanka. So when I went there, I was under the impression of Sri Lanka, it's quite similar to India. And, so to me, I didn't find a great difference. However, I got to realize it much later. So I was looked upon as somebody from Chennai, so that's Tamil speaking. And in the Sinhalese, you have Tamil and the Singhala. So I was just branded as Tamil because you're from Chennai, and therefore, you're not. And majority in my organization were Sinhalese. So like I was never included. Even if there was, a small thing like a cricket match, and India didn't do well in the cricket match, I used to get pulled up and say, hey, what is this? Your country is not doing well. You guys don't know how to play, and I mean, as if I were like, yeah. So definitely, and like weekends, as expatriates, people used to get together a lot. And I was never really invited to these get-togethers or, even the informal chats and the discussion. And added to this, it was also because like my husband was working in a competing firm. So I was like always like the black sheep out there, So initially I did feel like, hey, what is this? Why is it being this way? However, I realized, I mean, I was very clear. I said, I'm here for a particular reason. I want to, work and build my career. So let me just focus out there. So I put in all my energies into building my career. And surprisingly, like, I think after about 1.5 to 2 years, that's when I was pregnant with my first child, my son. And I was actually working till the last day, till the previous day of the delivery. I was in office, and, I never used pregnancy as an excuse for anything. I was just being normal. So I think that created a lot of shift in them because they realized, when you're committed, and, I said, let your work speak for itself. And that created a lot of shift. And therefore, like now we're all good friends, we're still in touch and whatever. So, if you ensure that you do not, bring this to the fore and just play along, I think as a matter of time, things will get better. So basically, to answer your question, I think a lot of empathy is essential. Put aside the cultural differences, even in India, if you're working within India, I've sometimes seen this divide between North, South, East, West, whatever. So, if you can put aside and ensure everybody is part of it, I think that makes a whole lot of difference. And most importantly, from a gender perspective, I think it's important to have the shift from gender equality to gender neutrality. So I think that would really help is my perspective on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an ideal situation. We all want to be there. I think it's miles to go, though. Yeah, I think small efforts.
Yeah, but I think as a collective, if everybody is, doing their part, hopefully we'll get there soon.
Exactly. Yeah. Hope for the best. Yes. Thank you. I love that acronym ACE, awareness, culture, and education. Good one.
Thank you.
Yeah. So given all this context, okay, yes, some women are playing out. I think some of us are very privileged enough to get this opportunities. And I think we also learned in the process, and I think most of us are successful to an extent in playing along. Okay. But I think given that context, I just want to listen to Sheila, you being an L&D professional. Okay. Are you seeing the youngsters? Are you observing the digital gender gap in your experience in the present day situation? And as an L&D professional, are women taking enough steps? We learned by experience, but the present generation of women, are they taking enough steps for themselves to bridge the gap? Both the youth and the mid-management women, are they doing it enough on their side to learn it from others' experience and asking for new opportunities, or taking that, asking what they want in terms of upskilling, etc.? What have you observed from an L&D perspective?
That is a great question, Bhaduri, and thanks to Shevolve for this opportunity. Now, I don't want to mince my words, okay? A lot of times we women are always known to put everyone else before us, right? And I see that that's definitely changing with the younger generation because of the parents they get, the way they get treated at home, the way they all get to do household chores equally among siblings, and the way they both get the opportunity for education. So yes, there's in fact a difference between the way the Gen Z or the Gen Y, the way they approach training. There's definitely a lot more equality and equity there with respect to the way they take up training, they use the digital resources. Having said that, the digital world is a mere replica of the real world, right? So any inequality that exists in the real world definitely replicates itself in the digital world also. And add to it, in a country like India, there's a lot of online gender-based violence, right? And just because it is online, it is anonymous, you don't get to see the face of the perpetrator. And I mean, on grounds of safety, women try to stay away from some of these sites, even if they want to really look up something useful. These threats of gender-based violence really keep them away. So that's another side which we've probably not explored a lot. And at the moment, there's not a proper legal recourse to any such violence, right? So that's a huge area of improvement for the legal agencies, I guess. And on the lifestyle and social situation, I think women, at least in most of the Asian countries, women are seen as the primary caregivers and homemakers, right? No matter what I remember this interesting incident by Indra Nooyi, right? She was the CEO, she went home and her mother was still like, leave your crown at the door, have you got the milk packets, right? So that is how you are treated, no matter what you accomplish elsewhere. If you have not made a meal for that particular day, or if you have not done something for the house that day, you've failed. And it's so easy to get us to go on a guilt trip and feel bad that we've not done one tiny thing while you have actually accomplished 100 other things, right? And that is changing with the newer generation. They're getting that family support. And for anybody to succeed, be it a man or a woman, for them to succeed in their career, what they truly need is the support and a supportive ecosystem around them to be able to perform their fullest potential. And more so, when they fail, they'll need a shoulder to lean on and say that it's okay and things will be fine later.
Oh, that's, I mean, very different perspectives, which Sheila, I mean, maybe latching on to that, I'm going to ask the next question to you also. So in the new way of life, because of the pandemic that came from nowhere and attacked us, and the need for women, I mean, I actually feel that women have become, to an extent, victims of the changed working conditions and the style. Okay, I mean, you can work from anywhere is actually is a chain, because then they are expected to be everywhere as a mom, as a wife, and the work times eating onto your family time as well. So with all these expectations and the looming need for women to work because of all these inflations and etc., my question is, as a digital gender gap has actually widened or shortened?
Honestly, it has widened, because a woman choosing to work from home is not necessarily her choice, right? A lot of times it's a choice enforced on them, inflicted on them by their family members, because the day she starts going out of the house to the office, the responsibilities of the other team members and other family members increases, right? Oh, so who else will go pick the child from the school now? Who's going to make a hot lunch? Who's going to do this? So a woman working from home works to the advantage of the rest of the family members. And my personal opinion is that the pandemic has pushed women back by 100 years. It has moved most of them back into the kitchen.
Oh, okay. I hope the organizations are listening, which is definitely not a good story, but I think, yeah, let's.
I tell the women employees on my team, do make it a point. I mean, it's good to kind of take a shower in the morning, get dressed and go to the office for a while, for once in a while, see people other than your family members, see some new human beings, get a coffee at the press of a button, have somebody else serve your meal to you. All of these are great experiences, and you don't have to go to the office just to be more productive, but go there to build your own social circle. A lot of times I see that men folk, whether they go out to play cricket on Sundays, they go out to a chai shop in the street corner with their friends, they somehow maintain a social circle. But for women, office is the legitimate place where a lot of them tend to maintain a social circle, right? So I encourage the women employees of my team to at least come into the office once a week, to at least build that social network. You're able to talk to somebody about what's happening. You're able to at least rant about what's happening at home. So it's good to see people other than your family members.
I mean, yeah, so latching on to that, the new challenges and etc. Ruchira, so maybe this question is to you. How can HR professionals and organizations ensure that they are really understanding the situations and promoting this gender diversity and establish equity in the hiring process, because there are new challenges that has been introduced because of whatever situations that we all got into in. And make it a fabric of the work culture, especially in industries that are much more tech focused. How can we introduce this equity with the added complexity of all these things?
Yeah, thank you. And, I couldn't agree more with everything that Sheila just said. And, even if you look at the something like proximity bias, which is actually playing against a lot of the women, because who's more likely to come physically to the workplace is more often men than women. And like Sheila rightly said, it may not be their choice, but it is what the reality is. And then it impacts how their performance is reviewed, how they get rated, and what their growth opportunities are. So it's definitely added to that divide that is there. So I think first of all, organizations have to start looking at the data. Right now, organizations are shy to even do that because they don't know what story the data will tell. And once they see the data, they cannot unsee the data, right? So I think that is the fear. So the first step for organizations is to look at the data and look at the right kind of data, not a high level and say, okay, let's just fix the gender skew, and, because that won't lead to anything. But really look at very nuanced data cuts, look at nuanced matrices, which, could everyone just check mute status, please? Yeah, okay. And, just sort of look at what stories are emerging, like women in tech. What is the data saying for them? And for women returning from maternity, what is it saying from a nutrition perspective, from a growth opportunities, from a career progression perspective? So from all of those, so really looking at data, I think, becomes very important. But then going beyond that, because you can have all the best of data, you will still see what you want to see, and you will address what you want to address. So I think, just beyond that, looking at biases and where they are playing out. And one is, of course, biases that people carry. All of us carry as individuals certain biases. So addressing those that are especially, true for women, because everybody carries these thoughts around what women can and cannot do at the workplace, or should not do. For example, if you talk about tech jobs, once women enter and they are there in that tech job, we are often concerned about what kind, or we are apprehensive about What kind of roles can they be assigned? Will they take up an on-site opportunity or will they not? And very often that on-site opportunity doesn't even get discussed with her, let alone, so she doesn't even have an option to say yes or no or otherwise. And if she does want to go, then she has to look at what permissions she needs to seek from who all. So it's a whole host of things that need to be addressed. So the mindset that people are carrying, and systemic biases that exist. Like I said, these things don't get asked to women. They're not given these opportunities. So all of those biases need to be addressed in an ongoing manner. I think that is the second thing. And the equity-based enablers. And Bhadri, let me also point out that very often equity is misunderstood as preferential treatment for women. To say now women have it easy, now they have these policies that are only for women. So I think as we are embracing equity, we also need to help people embrace that equity by first understanding why is it needed. In an ideal world, we will not need equity. Equality will suffice. It's not an ideal world. Women don't have the same advantages, and then you talk about women from socioeconomic backgrounds which are disadvantaged. You talk about women from LGBTQ plus backgrounds, women from disability. So it's just going to get compounded. So we are going to need equity till these barriers go away. So I think more education on why equity is needed and how equity benefits certain groups, and just getting comfortable with that is going to be an important journey that we make towards equality for women in the workplace.
Okay, cool. I think now we have the natural calamities or whatever you call, like the pandemic coming and giving it to us. And then the women actually being, some of the women not being able to get out of their own mindset. Adding to that, the policies and etc., how all of these need to, we have the data and the information, somebody has to make it together to make sure that this is also taken care along with whatever transformation that's happening around the world. With all of that, I think there are so many things, okay, that the women is expected to do despite all of these. So my question to Sangeeta is, I think you are a mentor and a coach, okay? I mean, you have taken that role from a CFO and you're also part of a lot of corporate boards, written a book called Get High, which talks about high performance. With all your expertise on coaching and mentoring, what are your thoughts on how mentoring and coaching is actually would be able to bridge this gender gap in digital workplaces, both from a perspective of the beneficiary, I mean, probably for the sake of this conversation, we will have that as women, and from also the organization, how they can go an extra mile of providing such mentoring and coaching to address this gender gap in workplaces, given whatever that we talked about, those challenges, is all of those differences.
Sure, that's a wonderful question, Badri. So let me start off with, telling this. There has been a survey that's been done, and whenever there's a job opening, normally a woman, even if she fits in about 90% of the job description, if it suits her also, the woman is thinking, oh, I'm still missing the 10%, I don't think I'll be the best fit for this role. Whereas a man, even though he may have just 50 to 60% of it, he goes ahead and, he speaks like, I am the best fit for this job, right? So that is a huge perspective shift in the way that women think. Having said that, that being the background, now if you were to look at most organizations, if you were to look at the organization pyramid, there are a lot of women at the base of the pyramid, but as the pyramid goes up, the number of women is much lesser, especially in the leadership roles. And therefore, the gender gap is huge. This is one of the reasons. Even though that we do recruit, organizations do recruit many women, as freshers and whatever, but as they rise up in their career, there is a huge gap. Now, this gap definitely needs to get bridged for various reasons, right? Simply because women bring in different perspectives, different thought processes, and diversity definitely adds a lot of value to organizations, especially if the business needs to be successful. Even on the board level, I think there was another survey that was being done, which said that, more the number of women in the board, the margins, the financial performance of the businesses were better. So therefore, it's already been proved. It's a given thing that you need to have diversity, and diversity is not just restricted to gender diversity. You need thought diversity, cultural diversity, and even geographical diversity, I would say, age diversity as well. So the gender is the one, probably that's the low-hanging fruit, and that can easily be attacked. So therefore, the role a coach plays, right, basically helps women boost up their confidence, because many times they're not aware of their inner strength. A coach acts like an ally to them, right? Helping them to grow in their career, acts like a sounding board, somebody who's challenging them, who's nudging them, who's able to enhance their level of clarity, right? Giving them that nudge, kindling their thoughts to see how they can grow, right? So therefore, coaching has become a very important part in many organizations. Now, if you were to look at the sports world, even the best of sportsmen or sportswomen in whichever sport, they work with a coach. So I say, why should it be any different in the corporate world, right? So even corporate leaders, I mean, this is gender neutral, of course. Whoever wants to grow and, maximize their potential, their performance, and contribute to the better financial performance, the profits of the business, it definitely helps when they work with a coach, because it becomes a win-win for everybody. And that is why I think a lot of organizations have started working with coaches. This is, of course, quite popular in the West. And companies and the corporates in India are also catching up, because I assume that, they are seeing a lot of value coming out of it. And therefore, a lot of coaches have been working with different organizations at different levels, depending on what the organization wants. And definitely for women, it makes a lot of difference. Just as being an ally, like, this year, the theme is also digitally, ally, digital plus the ally. So the allyship, I think, plays a lot of important role in helping shape the women and their career and their growth part. And of course, it's gender neutral as well, but I'm making it a little gender specific given the context of International Women's Day.
Got it. Thanks for that perspective. I think in the same context, switching gears a little bit, okay, I think we have been talking about the corporates, and I think probably we're a little bit privileged, at least in terms of more awareness. So I would like to go to Rinku now, okay? So how, in your experience, some of the key challenges faced by women and girls, especially from the marginalized sector, okay, in accessing the digital technologies, and how big is that barrier, and how socially inclined organizations like Shevolve, whose motto is about mentoring and coaching, may play a bigger role in supporting voluntary organizations like Chennai volunteers, and also make sure that the less privileged, if I may say, also get access to some of this and be playing a role in bridging this gap. And what is feasible? I mean, we all might have an audacious aspirations, but what is feasible?
Sure. So let me start with the first part of your question, which is in terms of the challenges that are faced. And yes, we do work with the marginalized sections, and they could be urban, semi-urban, and even rural. So that is one thing we learned, right, over COVID. Start at the root of it, I think, right from lack of internet or smart devices. Most of the people we work with, there is one smart device per family. And that stays with the breadwinner. It goes in the morning, comes back in the evening. The others still have their, the small devices which are not smart. In fact, a lot of our education is done through messaging also, because that is what reaches all kinds of devices, right? Not just smart devices. So it starts with that. Then it comes to skilled teachers and even curriculum that you can disseminate among these people. The cost of internet. So, and also lack of knowledge among the people who teach them in their vicinity. I mean, sometimes you go to these organizations or schools and the community colleges, and you see their teachers and you just wonder what it is that is really going down to the beneficiaries. You come back feeling that. I think apart from that, also there is this social cultural disparity, right? There is a discrimination. There are cultural issues wherein what is the need for you to go and learn this now? You sit at home and do your work. That seems to be the normal way to approach the situation in a lot of homes. And I think it's also, this whole thing as to what is it that you can do? You sit at home and cook or take care of your children. Also, I think safety is a big issue, which is also creating a challenge for women today at any age. I mean, I'm also at that point wherein some of the communities where we work, if we call the women outside to teach them something, they are not able to come out and, learn because the children in their home are not safe to be left behind. So it starts from socio-cultural to, financial to economic to literacy. It covers an entire spectrum. So I think we're at that point where we have to see where can we start to, make the difference. So now to come on to the other part of your question is that how can we help? How can Shevolve and other such organizations help? I would say it is very important to build a bridge. It is very important to let there be somebody who creates that bridge, but which would probably be a social organization, something similar to ours, because we are in touch with these people on a day-to-day basis. So we understand their reality, we understand their need, we are in touch with them, and we are the vehicles or catalysts of change to that extent. But there is also a need for a very effective and accessible platform that can actually give them what they need. So right from the curriculum or the content to, even mentorship, to something as basic as familiarization with STEM related, courses, and how will you say that a girl should be more participative in STEM courses. It need not only be, receptionist or other kind of operational courses that they make girls do most of the time, right? So it has to start from that, which is why even the approach has to be multi-pronged. While we reach out to, which is where an organization like CV helps, because you work with women who are in communities. There, the digital literacy is more in terms of technology used as YouTube. How much they pick up. I am amazed by these women. If you're teaching them candle making, the next time we go, they've done a new flavor. Akka, YouTube le paate hain. And this is what we do. You're teaching them tailoring and they've got some new designs. It's on YouTube. But you need to keep feeding them that. You need to keep giving them access to that. They need those devices to do it. Like recently, like one example I wanted to give is through Guild of Service. It's the centennial year. We actually created an opportunity for young children, a lot of them were girls, from disadvantaged schools to be given iPhones. And we gave them a theme of hope and happiness. And they went across the city with another organization. And they clicked photos on what hope and happiness meant to them. Now, that was something that their parents also didn't know. So just the fact that the child had an iPhone in their house, of course, it's a used one. Of course, it's on rent. And they created this whole perspective of their own, and it was put on display for the entire city. So that is about bridging the gap. That is about bringing them into the mainstream. And you should have seen some of them the girls were hearing impaired, some are speech impaired. Others have never had much exposure in their life. And they were standing there and explaining to all the guests as to why they took a picture that they took and how they took it with that phone. So it's also about just giving them access. It need not be for perpetuity. It can just be familiarizing them with it, right? The other thing which I always feel helps is when you have a woman teacher who's there to teach these girls, because you don't need any lectures then. They look at you and they just say, wow, I want to be like this lady when I grow up. So what do I need to do? So it's a lot of layers that, we really can do. And the other thing I feel is also, it's very important to bring in other stakeholders, whether it is active citizens or it is NGOs, be it corporates as a collaborative body, be it government. There has to be a holistic approach, a more inclusive approach, And there has to be policy change somewhere, which everyone and all of us can bring together. I think only then can we really plug this gap.
Yeah, I think you covered it all, Rinku. I think I'm spellbound is what I would say. Okay, I think if we can enable the whole ecosystem, okay, which is inclusive of all sectors of the human race, I think we can do so much. We can try and bridge this. I mean, there is no talking about widening. Okay, I think it has to be action to make sure that we start bridging this gender gap by some of these means. But I think I think we are probably, I think there are a lot of things, a lot of points that we discussed, but I think there's one question from the audience to Sheila. Have women started investing on themselves when it comes getting coached or getting certified? Because we still are, do we still see the percentage is low, which means I think are women investing enough in trying to ensure that they are actually relevant and getting coached?
Oh, that is a great question. The honest answer is the percentage is still low. And if you want to know the reasons, in fact, this is not hi, is somebody saying something?
No. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, and some of the reasons might surprise you, and these are not the reasons that I'm giving you. Okay, some of these are actually from the Forbes magazine. So why do women not invest on themselves? They are not sure whether this is the right time to invest in themselves, right? Because, and if we keep thinking that way, no time will be the right time. The second thing, the guilty of investing on themselves, while that money could have actually been used for a different family expense or for the household. So they kind of feel bad about investing on their certification or training. And why are they scared? Because they're not sure of the return on investment. So if I invest in this certification, will I really achieve something? Will I really get a growth path? Is there an assured reward or guarantee? But the last reason will actually surprise you. They're scared of actually becoming successful, which would eventually make them more responsible, which will take them to a great height and make them disconnected from their family. So they are in fact afraid of truly becoming successful.
Oh, wow. Yes, I think I never thought that the number 3, I mean, I think from my perspective, okay, definitely number 3 is a surprise. So I think we are probably running out of time. So I'll probably give each of you a half a minute so that we can have the last any thoughts that you want to share given what we discussed so far, so that we all play an active role in bridging this gender gap. Maybe we'll start with Sheila. Since you're already unmuted.
Sure. I want to kind of bring this whole thing on a lighter note. Okay. There's a popular saying that says, women who do not help fellow women will find a place in hell. Right. And I think the women here are actually the opposite of that. We're all doing our bit to try and do what we can to other women. So keep doing it. Some of us may be privileged, but we've got to be cognizant of the fact that not every woman has the privilege and the support system that they need. So if you see people around needing that support, lend them a helping hand. Don't hesitate. Be less judging and more loving and kind.
Thank you, Sheila. Ruchira?
Yeah, thank you. It was so wonderful to hear everyone's thoughts around this. So I'm just going to sum it up in the with the IW theme, the theme, which is embracing equity. So just requesting each one of us to do our bit towards that equity and not shy away from it. In whatever small way that we can, whether like Sangeeta said, whether it's as allies or whether it's in small ways in an organization or because we are in HR, whatever small way that we can contribute towards equity for women and other diverse groups, let's just keep at it. It will pay off at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sangeeta?
Yeah, so I would like to just share 2 quick things. So like you said, I've written the book Get High, which is how to coach yourself for high performance in your work. And I want to just remind everybody that Your high performance is gender neutral. So you can have anybody who's a high performer, and therefore just put the gender biases aside. And on a lighter note, I want to say, you make the woman a Devi or a devil. So it's up to you to bring out the best in her and, nurture and nourish her growth. So just keep that in mind, whether if you want the Devi or the devil in your life.
Thank you. Rinku.
I think I would just like to say that there's so much that is happening. A lot of good work is happening, a lot of professional, steps towards advancement, towards making sure that we're not only equal, but we have a voice, and we lend that voice to other women as well. But I think it's time to just collaborate and bring it all together. I think that is when it will really, really be a vital voice and one of change. And I think that's the step I'm hoping Shevolve will help facilitate. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. I think to sum it up, I think we know what's the issue. We know what can be done. Some of us are privileged enough to experience some of that, to give it back. I think it's important that as a woman, take that leadership, take that opportunity, make it happen. Make sure that the other women also gets that opportunity. Look around the people, look around the whole ecosystem and leverage every single thing. And most importantly, voice it up. Make sure that, because Rome is not going to be built in a day, it's going to take time, but that doesn't mean that it cannot be done. I think each of us have to probably share and lean in on each other and make sure that we are keep raising the, asking for opportunities, find ways to find different ways to make it happen. At the same time, none of these falls to the crack is I think at the hands of each of us and the whole ecosystem. And I think wherever it is necessary, we should also ask our allies, the men allies, make them aware of what it takes to be on this side, because I don't think anybody do this intentionally. So play a bit to make sure the unconscious biases, the conscious biases are questioned, the unconscious biases are made aware to them, so that we all succeed in making sure that we can make this world, not just the workplace, bridge the gender gap, so we can start seeing economic and social inequalities actually reducing. That's the hope. And I think it has been great 50 minutes of conversation, listening to diverse set of thoughts coming from diverse set of women. Thanks so much for all your thoughts and insights. We have recorded this conversation. I'm sure most of us are going to play this out at different points of time and see what can be done. And we are, as Shevolve, we're also looking to partner with each of you in making sure that how can we actually act on what we spoke so far. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Badri, for the lovely moderation. And thank you, Deepa and Trisha, for hosting this awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. Over to Trisha for the next segment.
Thank you all.
Thank